Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. It's match day and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as we talk PSG interest in Marcus Rashford. This is coming in from The Times. Also, Erik ten Hag has been talking about transfer mistakes or why they've not been as successful as maybe they should have been. He's basically talking about last summer transfer window and why patience is a virtue. Do you agree with that? We'll talk about that as well. And also, Dan Ashworth. He's upset. Well, he's not upset Man City. Ineos have upset Man City taking Barada. We're going to upset Newcastle taking Ashworth. And the domino effect continues as we move in on a Chelsea star that they don't want to lose. We'll talk about that as well. Lots to get into on the show this morning. It is match day. Look, thanks to everyone who watched the video last night. I don't normally do match reactions to Spurs, but it was sort of a match reaction to Spurs because that door is wide open this morning. If we win this afternoon against Luton, and it's going to be tough, we're 3 points behind Spurs and that top four race is on. Some good news about that. Luke Shaw is expecting to play today. He's on the bus or the plane, however we're getting there, for Manchester United's game this afternoon, which is another big boost because we don't have anybody else who can play at left back. So big boost there. But look, let's get into the news. We're going to start off with this story coming in from The Times. And we've got a poll that's been running already. That poll basically is, should Rashford leave in the summer? Well, get your thoughts in there. We'll be certainly taking some of your comments early on this because this is the story. Came in last night from Duncan Castles in The Times. PSG have included Marcus Rashford on a shortlist of potential replacements for Kylian Mbappe, who has informed the French champions of his decision to leave this summer. Well, look, the poll at the moment stands at yes, 80% Rashford should leave in the summer. So obviously, this thing that I have been monitoring with the community and social media for a number of weeks now, Marcus Rashford has lost his popularity in the United fan base. Now, whether he likes that, whether the people around him like it or not, he has. And it's not because of hate or agenda. For some reason, it's just gone. And I think the biggest reason is performance on the pitch. And I think he can win that back between now and the end of the season. He's playing with a smile on his face. The team looks better. I expect the goals to come. Hopefully he'll get some goals today. But at the moment, his popularity rating isn't that high. Now, is it because of Højlund, Garnacho and Mainu and Rashford's sort of not the star boy anymore? I think that could actually be quite useful for him to move into a more experienced role within the team. Or is it that just some people think that now's the time for him to depart? Well, 80% of you think it's time to go. Ultimately, it comes down to whether Marcus Rashford wants to go as well. Give us your comments on why you think he should stay or go. That's what I want to know. A poll gives you a very much 80-20. It's a click. But why does he need to go? Why does he need to stay? Why do we need to give him a little bit longer? Let us know in the chat. Jude, thank you very much for your super chat. Look, the bottom line is I don't need the Times to tell me that PSG are considering Marcus Rashford. It wasn't that long ago. It was just under 2 years ago that his agent travelled to Paris to speak to PSG. PSG and Marcus Rashford have a long history of communication, desire, interest, whatever you want to call it. They're about to lose Kylian Mbappe, who, let's be honest, Kylian Mbappe really is a left forward. And so is Marcus Rashford. If they want the most stereotypical replacement for Kylian Mbappe, there are two players to go for. There's Leao at AC Milan, and there's Rashford at Manchester United. I'm a fan of Rashford. I know some of you don't rate him. I'm a fan of his. If I was PSG and I was looking to replace Kylian Mbappe, I'm going for Leao or I'm going for Rashford. It's one of those two. I think they might go for Osimhen. Osimhen's a striker. Osimhen is an out-and-out striker. Osimhen competes with Haaland and Harry Kane. He doesn't compete with people like Kylian Mbappe and Neymar. He's not that type of a player. So if they want to replace Mbappe, then you get Marcus Rashford or you go for Leao, in my opinion. Or there might be somebody else out there, let's be honest. But I'm just saying that there is a logical reason to go for Marcus Rashford. There is a logical history between Rashford and PSG in relation to interest. And there is a logical scenario where Ineos, Rashford, Ten Hag decide that now is the time to part ways. I don't think we need to be... I mean, I'll fight against this as much as I can. I think opinion is absolutely the fundamental point of football. I see a shift in the way that football's moving again. I think when I first came into this space and we started building United Stand, it was very, very heavy. You put the TV, you put on the radio, and you get told a load of shit by scripted ex-players. I think we've changed the platform there. We've changed the reality there. But I think there is something dangerous happening in football. But now is not the time. Maybe I'll do a video of that in future. But My point is, there is nothing wrong with fan opinion. In fact, it's the lifeblood of football. I think sometimes it can be overly toxic. I don't like bold fraud for Ten Hag. It's not constructive. I don't like that player's a big shit waste of a flop. Get rid of him. It's not constructive. But I can see a scenario where if Rashford feels now's the time and PSG really want him as the star of the team and United want to do the deal, that deal can be done. Logically, I can see that being done. I think a lot of ticks need to happen for that to happen. But United, PSG will cover a fair transfer fee. They'll cover the wages. Man United can move on. Rashford can move on. And PSG get a very, very good player who, let's be honest, would probably thrive in the French league the same way that Mbappe and Neymar did. So I can see it working. And playing in Paris as a star of a very big team and a very big brand, I think that could be very, very useful for Marcus Rashford. On the other hand, Manc born and bred, he will want to be the star of Manchester United. And the fact is, can he redeem that? Can he win that status back? Or is now the time where you sit down with the people around you that matter and you say, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be the Man United superstar I was 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think I could go to PSG and be their star and turn a different page and maybe win my England place back and things like that. So it's not about what we want. It really comes down to what Ineos want, and it really comes down to what Rashford wants. And I think that there is an opportunity there. I mean, look, I look at Jadon Sancho, a bad performance for Dortmund yesterday. It was a bad performance. It was a bad performance from Dortmund, and it was a bad performance from him. We spoke about Mason Greenwood yesterday doing well at Getafe. I want our players to do well. I want them to have options if it's time to go. And the fact that, Marcus Rashford's just signed a new contract at Man United, I wouldn't expect him to be leaving in the summer. But if there is a big option like that, then it might be the right thing to do. I mean, look, the Belfast thing was shocking. We've moved past it. But Marcus Rashford's not an idiot. When he's going out in a nightclub in Belfast the night before training, he knows he's going to cause a shitstorm. That, to me, is a cry for help. That, for me, is somebody who's not very happy. If he's not very happy, he's got to look at himself. And if happiness is going to be, maybe I need to move away from this club I've been at all my life and experience something else, then he should be looking at doing that. Nobody should be denying that. But the PSG interest will be real. Whether Rashford and Man United want to part ways, I think at the moment it's too early to say. But the PSG interest will be real. It's been real before. The question is, and I would say this to Marcus Rashford if I was an advisor of his, I would say, look, honestly, Marcus, it's flattering that PSG want you to be the heir to the Kylian Mbappe throne, because that's big shoes to fill, and you will be the superstar of the team. Your biggest concern, if you're considering it, is whether you are that option in the summer, because you might not be the number one option. Let's be honest. Is Marcus Rashford going to be PSG's number one option for Kylian Mbappe? I think he was 2 years ago. He might not be it now. They might not go for him. He might be on a shortlist where they go for Leao or somebody else. So, look, I'd watch this space on it. I think we can speak about it in a mature way. It's certainly not offensive to say that Marcus Rashford might need to be sold in the summer. And it's certainly not offensive to say, don't sell Marcus Rashford in the summer. But it is a debate point. And it's a debate point because he's not delivering the star status he was last season. He doesn't look as happy as he did last season. And maybe it is time to part ways. I'm very much of the opinion that I think he can have a massive part in United getting top four. And I'm very much of the opinion that that may well lead to him staying. But I'm also fully aware that behind closed doors, everything is not what it seems. And I'm not going to say that's to do with Rashford. There are still issues with players and manager at that football club that have finally professionally been parked by somebody that's actually gone into the club and said, you play for Manchester United, whether you like the manager or not, or the manager likes you, professionally deliver on the pitch, deliver a performance, and you will get your move in the summer if that's what you want. And I think that finally is resonating with a lot of players, and that's why we're seeing the unity, and long may that continue. Jason Ogden, welcome to Members Club. And Jude says, I forgot to add to the message, Rashford is good no matter what people say, but he hasn't proven it this season, but I don't think he should go. Just going to read some of your comments here because we've got a lot of stuff to talk about what Ten Hag said about last summer and why it went wrong. But let me just read some of your comments on here because 82% of you are saying Rashford should go in the summer. Daz says, last season was probably his best at Old Trafford. He's been well below par this season, and as a senior player, I personally find it unacceptable. His body language and attitude is poor. Andrew Green says, I like Rashford, but I do think it's time to go. And if we can get between 170 and 200 million, I'll take it. Andrew, if we get between 170 and 200 million pounds for Marcus Rashford, I'll faint. We won't. I don't think we'll get. I think take 100 off. It will do well to get 100. 70 to 100. I think you've done really, really well. Thomas says the comments in this chat are a joke. We need to keep Rashford. Pigtail says if it's over 75 million, I'd sell. So some people looking at it from a money point of view, which is absolutely fine. Sam says Garnacho, Maino and Højlund are the new stars. Rashford had his chance. He isn't a player for this club to win trophies, says Sam. 100 million for Rashi. They can't buy Liao. He has a 170 million release clause, says Sugar. And if we get an offer north of 100 million pounds, then I say we should sell him because it would also be pure profit since he's a homegrown player, says Anati. And Old School says Rashford doesn't track back. We need a more rounded left winger. And Staffy says, I think he's in the shop window. He'll step up his performances. A win for us in every way. I like that. I like that, Staffy. He's one of our members. Can I just say as well, we were talking about Elise or Neto, weren't we, in the week? And I think a lot of people, do like Elise. But I think we saw Neto's quality again yesterday. People want to pigeonhole people. Some people say, well, Neto works well in a counter-attacking team, which is what Wolves do a lot of. But Wolves are also one of the best pressing and hard-working teams in the league. So it's not necessarily the quintessential counter-attacking team that sits and counters. Wolves actually go and try and win the ball as well and transition with the ball on the counter. It's very similar to what Ten Hag wants to do. So I think Neto is a very interesting player. Obviously, Elise can't challenge him at the moment because he's injured, and we know Neto has injury problems as well. But I just don't. I think if for pure assists, Neto is incredible. And look, I don't really care who we bring in. If we bring a winger in with a profile of assists, then I think we're onto a winner. We don't have wingers that first thought is to create for anybody. Their first thought is to shoot, whether it's Anthony, Rashford, even Garnacho to a certain extent. So we do need a winger profile that's creative. And he looked great yesterday. Caveman Jesus says, happy Sunday, everyone. Let's grab those 3 points today. Oh, it's so important. It's so important that we win today, isn't it? It really is. Why would Ineos sell a player to a rival like Nice, like us selling Rashford to Man City, says William Simpson. It'd be interesting. Look, it's very, very interesting to know what Ineos' stance is going to be with Rashford. For years and years and years, the Glazer stance with Rashford was not sellable, massive player, from the youth, British, massive brand, ticks every single box about what Manchester United should be doing. That's a Glazer stance on people like Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial. Will Ineos come in and say that as well? Under no circumstances is Marcus Rashford for sale. Regardless of performance, he is what this club is all about. Because that's what United have been doing for years. Will Ineos have that same stance? I don't know. I don't know. I would lean towards Ineos will want to stick with Rashford. But I don't know. But I think that's what will happen. Rashford's game is like a light switch. It's on and off, says the alien. And Chris says, the Belfast thing explains why he's been shit this season and how much he's disrupted the team, says Chris. Yeah, but the last 2 weekends, he's made a curry. He put a picture on his Instagram yesterday that he made a curry. And the weekend before, he made a puzzle. So, some people will say it's PR, but I don't really care whether it's PR or not. He's not getting pictured out in nightclubs, is he? He's at home making food and doing a picture puzzle. Some people might say it's very, very basic PR, and there will always be the backlash to that. But, maybe he is trying to... Look, at the end of the day, if Rashford scores today and we win, that's all I care about. Sell Rashford, then we could buy De Jong and Kimmich, says Merjan. Look, I get it. If you can get 100 million quid, it's pure homegrown. It obliterates FPL because that 100 million just goes straight into our budget. The big thing for me about this is, and I said it the other day when we were talking about Elise, is how do you buy Elise or Neto? How do you buy these wingers or Tell from Bayern Munich and not sell Rashford really, I suppose, if I'm being blunt, because Rashford and Garnacho are our starting wingers. Why spend 50, 60, 70 million pounds on a winger when you've already got your 2 starting wingers and you've already got Ahmad and Pellistri and Anthony? Now, one of those might go in the summer, 2 of them might go in the summer, but we've got our starting wingers. They're called Garnacho and Rashford, so why buy another winger? At best, Rashford's going to get benched next year for Elise or Neto at some point if he carries on like he is, being a bit of a light switch on and off. So I don't understand the... I don't understand the negativity. I really, really don't. We've got a bit of breaking news here. Well, look, this is what happens then with fake news. We can bring you some fake news here. I'm being told that the video of Luke Shaw walking around with the squad, plus the rest of them walking out of the hotel, is from last week, and that was filmed leaving for the Villa game. So fake news seems to have caught out a lot of people this morning, including myself. I'd seen that as well. Yeah, not true. Calvin, it's Sunday morning. You could be in bed with a cup of coffee. Probably won't be. No, with an attitude like that, you're just going to be a sad, lonely person, aren't you? But you're going to be even lonelier because you're not going to be mentioned at all ever again. Goodbye. Basically, he's just moaning about why we're chatting rubbish. It's a news show, Calvin. We've been doing it for 10 years. The biggest Manchester United independent fan community in the world. And it's a news show, Calvin. That's why we're talking about a bit of news by the Times, which is an English institution of delivering news for the last 200 years. And we're talking about PSG's interest in Marcus Rashford in the news from a credible institution on a massive Manchester United community. And Calvin thinks we're talking rubbish. Don't be like Calvin. Be better. Anyway, hi Mark. Should Rashford leave? Who would you replace him with? Look, Devil by Red. I have read a load of comments there. Welcome to Members Club, Glenn, by the way. Absolute legend. 80% of fans want to sell Rashford, says Spencer. Ineos should listen to that as much as Eric Ten Hag in. Well, maybe they should. And Caveman Jesus is gifted a membership. FIFA Crazy says the reason we have to spend big on a winger is because we need a winger to give Højlund service, which none of our wingers can do. My stance is, I agree we need a winger who is creative. But if we buy a winger who is creative, it's going to be 50, 60, 70 million quid. And if you're going to spend 50, 60, 70 million quid, you really can't keep Rashford, Garnacho, Anthony, Ahmad, Pellistri. You can't do it. We need a creative winger. And the interesting thing is, people say bring Mason Greenwood back. He's not a creative winger. He's another cut inside shoot. He can create, but really he's a goal scoring winger as well. So we need a profile of a winger who can create. You know, you look at the Liverpools, you look at the Arsenals, you look at the Man Cities. Creation off the flank is big, and it's big in the modern game. So we do need to do it. But look, before we move on, I am a little bit confused. Eric Ten Hag came in, made it very clear in his interview that he wanted Marcus Rashford to be the focal point of his team. That happened last year, and everything was going well. And then this season, it's not gone well. I don't really understand what we're trying to do on the wing, because he wanted Rashford to be the main guy. He spent £80 million on Anthony, and he's developed Garnacho. But none of those 3 players at the moment are very creative. So where's the creative winger? Pellistri is the most creative winger we've got, and he's gone. Ahmad we've not seen anything of yet. So it leans towards we're going to buy a creative winger, and there are some really good options out there. But if you do it, what are you doing without Rashford and Garnacho? Because one of them has to go to the bench, and it can't be Garnacho. You can't bench Garnacho when he's 19 and developing at a dangerously fast rate. So I don't know what the solution's going to be. For me, I wouldn't sell Rashford in the summer. I like him. I think he's still got a lot to offer from the left wing. I appreciate and understand why people would. But I think there's so many interesting games to come, starting with today, where he can have a big impact. And as we know with Rashford, he is a light switch. And if he turns the light on and scores 10 goals between now and the end of the season, I don't think people will be saying sell him anyway. Rashford versus Barcelona plus cash. PSG dumb enough to accept, says D. It's not, no, Barcelona, not Barcelona. Sorry, I read that completely wrong. And Rory says, if we sell Rashford, we probably need to buy English given current homegrown players. And next year, Rasmus has to be registered as a senior player, says Rory C. Thank you very much. And Tom says, from a pure business sense, Rashford's pure profit and always allows us to rebuild and put the club first and not to be nostalgic about an inconsistent player, says Tom. Well, hi, Mark. Today is the day. If you know, you know, says Dan John. Yeah, good luck with that. Be very active, Dan. And look, I think that I like that. I do like that comment, and I'm going to leave it there. There should be no favouritism, no nepotism, no, inconsistency. We want to see strong footballing decisions, not based on sentimentality. And whether that's Scott McTominay or Marcus Rashford or any other player that's been here for years, ultimately, whether you've been signed from Sporting Lisbon or you've been at the club since you were 8, you should be assessed on ability and not on sentimentality. And I think for too long we've done sentimentality, and I agree with that. Rashford stays if we change the manager, but if Erik Ten Hag stays, he goes. Some players just underperform under Ten Hag's leadership. We improved so much after Ineos steps in. I hope Ahmad can quickly prove his worth, says Alif Visuals. And also as well, we do need a change in the playing staff. They're doing very, very well at the moment, but to use the light switch analogy, this squad of players can lose 7-0 to Liverpool at Anfield. This squad of players can lose to Crystal Palace at home. They're more than capable of going on a good run. We've seen that before, but I do think we need a profile change in the squad. We need to bring more new players in with a different mentality, because there is a certain squad element that still are very inconsistent. So that needs to be looked at as well. But 82% of you would move him on. I personally wouldn't at the moment. I think there's still a lot of football to be played this season. Let's have a look at what Erik Ten Hag had to say. I need to talk to you about what Dan Ashworth has said as well, because I think that's really, really, really interesting. He's looking to bring in somebody from Chelsea, which is going to upset Chelsea, of course. But lots going on. And this was very interesting. Erik Ten Hag, in his embargoed section last night, which came out from the Thursday press conference, actually. So this didn't come out till last night. He was talking about the summer transfer window. So specifically the Ananas, the Mason Mounts, etc. And he said, when we were in the summer, I think we had a very good momentum last summer. We'd finished 3rd, we'd won one of the finals, and we were in another final. Then we chose to bring in young players for the future, and that was to do with financial fair play. That was the choice that we made, but you then know it will take longer before you can come into the competition for the top positions in the Premier League or the Champions League. So, look, I'm reading that. I didn't see that. And sometimes the written word doesn't take into, well, a lot of the time, doesn't take into account the way it was said, the facial expressions, etc. So when Erik Ten Hag is saying that we bought last summer for the longer term with regards to financial fair play, and we sort of potentially sacrificed being in a title race or in the top 4 for the long-term good, I don't have a massive issue with it, apart from the fact that I'm looking at who we bought last summer, and Onana is a relatively young goalkeeper, I suppose, but that doesn't make any sense in relation to financial fair play. I mean, let's dissect the business. We bought young players for the long term because of financial fair play. Onana was 50 million quid, and we got rid of a Golden Glove winner for nothing. If that's about financial fair play, then Eric needs to understand what financial fair play is. Because you had a goalkeeper that you let go for nothing, who was in his prime, and spent £50 million to replace him. There's nothing about that that's financial fair play. There's nothing about that that helps financial fair play. Mason Mount, we spent £55 million on him. He's been injured all season. He's in his mid-20s, and he was out of contract this summer. Again, that's got nothing to do with financial fair play. I don't see the angle. If we'd waited a year, he might have gone somewhere else, but he would have been free, and we overpaid by 15 million quid. So it's got nothing to do with financial fair play. Rasmus, I understand. Rasmus for 60, 70 million at 20 years of age, yeah, that's a future projection. And if he starts scoring goals in the Premier League, if you spread that out over 5-6 years, he's still 26. He's probably doubled in value, and you've spent 10 million a year. So I understand the Rasmus signing in relation to future projection against financial fair play. Of course I do. But I do not understand I don't understand saying that Mason Mount or Onana are about financial fair play, because they're actually the opposite. They're bad financial decisions. As I say, spending £50 million to replace a goalkeeper many wouldn't even replace is a waste of 50 million quid. And spending £55 million on a player that is out of contract in a year and has subsequently been injured all year is a waste of 50. We wasted £100 million last summer. You know, you can't predict it was going to go that way, but we wasted £100 million. So it's not about it's not about future planning, and it's not about financial fair play. We messed up. Højlund is about the future, but yeah, that's you know, sometimes you've got to call it out and say, look, on this quest to be better doesn't mean that we have to swallow nonsense, and that is nonsense, complete and utter nonsense. You know, to say that we sacrificed the Premier League title race to spend money because of financial fair play on younger players for the future, I don't agree with that. Even if you think Mason Mount's young, he's out of contract in a year, so why spend £55 million on him for the future? It was a bad financial decision. I mean, and I still think Mount could be a good player, but it's been let's call it what it is. Onana and Mason Mount financially have been really bad signings. We just hope that they can deliver. He said that Man United will always be a buying club, but I think history and the DNA prove it gives opportunities from the academy if a player deserves it, which is good. And he says, in my opinion, there are younger players who have the potential. We've given them the time to develop and progress, mentoring them in the right way because we saw their potential was higher than the current squad players in that moment in those positions. And we also take into account that they couldn't bring the levels in at the moment, but when you give them the opportunity, they progress so quickly and bring the team to higher levels in the long term, which I think is correct in relation to people like Kobe Mainoo and Garnacho. And he says many times young players who are capable of making the step into the first team, those players are coming into our first team training so we can judge them if they have the potential to make that step up. And there has been a lot of United youngsters who have trained with the first team. On the performance of the team recently, he says it's too quick to say we've turned a corner. I think we are back in the race, but not in the position we want to be. We have to still catch up. And he says, I think we have in the back of our squad more young players who can make the steps like Kobe Mainoo and Garnacho have as well, which I think is obviously very, very important. Just a few other bits from Erik ten Hag as well that he had to say in relation to the youth. I've mentioned that one. He said, when we started the season with Ajax, no one expected us to reach the semi-finals of the Champions League. No one expected us to progress so quickly, and that can also happen here. Don't really know what the context of that is, to be honest. He says, we need to catch up, but I think we're now on the right track with this squad. I always knew we had the quality to challenge for the top 4 places, which is obviously quite positive. And he says, I do think we're going in the right direction. I was always convinced we would once the players were available. With this squad, I knew that with me and my coaching staff and players and the togetherness, we have the quality to play for the top 4. Of course, over the season, we have to prove it. But I was always convinced that we would. And obviously, we've got to win today. And also, we've spoken about that as well. So that's fine. Okay. So some interesting stuff in there. As I say, I mean, I don't think you can justify the... I don't think you can justify last summer's transfer window as being about, buying for the future. But look, things are going well for United at the moment, and today is a cup final, and we need to win. Rangnick wanted Luis Diaz. He's a left winger. If he had his way, would Rashford be sold back then? Rashford, I feel, will end up being a bench player, says Baines. I can't remember what Rangnick did with Rashford. I think he did drop him a little bit. I can't remember. I mean, he was having a terrible season, but I can't remember. If you could take any Villa player, who would it be, says Sir Unai Emery. Com, welcome to the Members Club. From Aston Villa, you've got a few good players I'd take in the midfield. Douglas Luiz would probably be jumping out number 1. I think Pau Torres has done very, very well at Villa and would actually suit the way Ten Hag wants to play. I like Ollie Watkins as a striker as well, so probably one of those three. But Villa are doing well. I mean, very good result for Villa yesterday at Fulham. I mean, I was glad Spurs dropped points, but if I was expecting anyone, I think it would have been Villa. G5150, thank you very much for gifting a membership. And yes, just to talk about this next bit of news, actually, I'll get into the comments in a minute, but there was a three-pronged attack for this news today. So Dan Ashworth has now apparently moved in relation to somebody else. So Dan Ashworth wants Chelsea chief analyst Kyle McCauley as part of his new support team at Manchester United, and the club are ready to upset Chelsea with a move for the analyst. Dan Ashworth also wants an experienced head of recruitment and will be looking at increasing his staff, with Chelsea's chief analyst Kyle McCauley seen as a key appointment. So this will upset Chelsea, of course. We'll have been to Man City, Newcastle and Chelsea for key appointments in the backroom staff, and apparently this is another target for Manchester United. I did see a piece yesterday. Look, as I said before, we're heading into an area now where anybody who tries and finds out who these people are, they're just reading articles. It's just hearsay. They don't know. I mean, you ask me what I think about Xabi Alonso, I can tell you based on my own knowledge, but I don't know anything about Kyle McCauley. Jason Wilcox was a footballer. I don't know much about what he's done in relation to development at all. But as long as United are recruiting best in class, you've got to trust them on it. What I will say is that I'd like us to bring in some non-British people. I mean, Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, Kyle McCauley, they sound very British to me. And the world isn't British-centric, like Europe, South America. I would like us to be employing best in-house, which is like, Omar Barada being, non-British, I thought was a brilliant appointment. We don't need to be so British-centric. We can bring in people from Europe, and I would like us to see us do that. We've got a European coach. We don't need to be so British-centric, I don't think. But obviously Dan Ashworth is going to go for people that he knows, and the Premier League is a British league, so it makes sense. But look, as long as we're bringing in best in-house, I really don't care. And as I said on Friday, I'm sort of getting past the point of caring now, because the CEO and the director of football were really the two I wanted. They will bring a lot of people in below them. I don't need to know every name. I don't need to know where they're coming from. It's a three-pronged attack with this. CEO, director of football, they're done. What we're doing with the playing staff. As a fan, 10 years ago, we had no idea about, chief analysts, or we didn't really take much attention to the CEO or the director of football. The reason we spend so much time talking about it is because we've been so bad in that area. Get a good CEO, get a good director of football. The next thing I want to focus in on is the squad. Who's coming, who's going, what we're doing in the summer. Because I'm not really interested who's going to be the chief computer analyst. I'm not that bothered. If you want to bring someone from Chelsea or Atletico Madrid, fine. Let's employ best in house. We've got the CEO. We're going to have the director of football. Now I want to see us get to work. I don't want to hear Dan Ashworth's not starting till September. I don't want to hear he's not starting till June. I want to hear he's starting next week. I want to hear him in the club doing his job, because there's so much that needs to be done. We've just spent 20 minutes talking about Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Mason Greenwood, Scott McTominay, Rafael Varane, Casemiro, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Donny van de Beek, Christian Eriksen, Anthony Martial. There's loads more that we need to make decisions on, whether they're going to go or whether they're going to stay, and then we need to start looking at players to come in as well. This squad is the next thing for me. If we waste another 2 months talking about, Barada wants to bring in somebody who's going to work in accounts, who used to be at Man City, couldn't give a shit. What are we going to do with the team now? We've got the CEO, we've got the director of football. Let's get on with the team. And now is the time. We're approaching March. We all know that transfers are going to be being worked on now. Let's get to work, because if we can salvage this season, and it's exciting, let's just remind ourselves about how exciting it is. If we can salvage this season, I can't believe we could be listening to the Champions League music next season. If you'd have said that to me a month ago, I would have said you're having an absolute laugh. I don't know how we've done this, but we've done it. We've got ourselves in a position where, with 3 wins in a row, we're suddenly... if we win today, we're 44 points. We're 3 points off Spurs. 5th place is highly likely to get us Champions League football. We've got to go for 4th, of course, but highly likely to be in the Champions League if we get 5th place. If we're in the Champions League next season, then, and who knows what's going to happen in the FA Cup, but if we're in the Champions League next season, then is the season a failure? No. I think the Champions League is massive for Manchester United. I mean, blinking you missed it this year. It was an absolute joke, but to be back in it next year would be huge financially, status as well. That's got to be massive for Manchester United. It's got to be massive for these players. And I can't believe how it's presented itself. And it's not like we've been lucky. We've won 3 big games, and that's what happens in a league like this. The doors open up. And Tottenham losing to Wolves yesterday, whether it's a blip or not, I'll look at Tottenham and go, they can lose any game. Villa can lose any game. So we've got to go for this. We've got to go for it, grab it, get in the Champions League, and then go and have an amazingly impactful season, because look at what's above you. We're nowhere near Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool, by the way. We're absolutely nowhere near them. And that's what we need to do in the summer, because if we do get 4th place in the summer, Ineos have got to be thinking about how you get closer to Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool, because there'll be a load of teams trying to get our spot next year. So this is so important today. Højlund could become only the 4th player to score in 6 successive Premier League appearances today. Come on, United, says John Jonathan. I mean, I just can't wait for this game to kick off today. I was doing my Talk Sport show last night, and I said, I can't remember the last time. Well, if you'd have said to me at the start of the season that Manchester United against Luton at Luton was going to be such a massive game of football, I'd have said, you're having a laugh. You're having a laugh. But, it's so big. It's so big. I'm so excited about it. It's a tiny ground. It's got a big atmosphere. They're going to be well up for it. And they don't tend to get beaten by loads and loads of goals. But I've said it before. I did it on my podcast, and I've said it to you last night. I've just got a funny feeling that Harry Maguire scores today. I think this has got a Harry Maguire goal written all over it. Or maybe a Scott McTominay in the last 20 minutes. It's going to be a physical encounter. It's going to be about set pieces. We've got to be very careful about arms flying around for penalties and stuff like that, of course. But I do. I think it's going to be a character game. This reminds me of a lot of that Fulham away game back in probably October time, when there was this growing Ten Hag, media especially were against Ten Hag, and the usual contenders in the fan base were giving it the big one about bold fraud. And we went away to Fulham, and it was just a battling 1-0 win. And I think this today, I mean, if we can go there and win 3 or 4-0 and send a statement out, absolutely fantastic. But I'm not expecting that. I will take a scrappy, shitty, rubbish 1-0 win, 2-1 win. I don't care how it happens, last minute, first minute, whatever. We've just got to take the 3 points, because that's all that's going to matter. If we could look back on this at the end of the season and go, that loss or that draw at Luton, that was the pin in the balloon that stopped this momentum. And you've also got to remember that we're in a good position. Ideally, I would like us to have been in the top 3 this year at this stage of the season and still in the Champions League. But contextually, how this season has gone, it was a write-off going into January, and in mid-February, it's right on. We're still in the FA Cup, and that's very important to us. But, here's a question for you. Would you not say that actually, over the last few weeks, I think a month ago, the FA Cup was our absolute priority? It was all or nothing in the FA Cup. I think right now, the FA Cup is still important, but I think the Champions League spots has become the priority, and that's how well we've done in the last month, because a month ago, it was like, the FA Cup is just so important for us now, we've got to try and win it. And I still think we do need to try and win it, and I think Ten Hag will try and win it, but the league has just opened up in a massive, massive way. But you got to win today. You have to. Ten Hag is doing exactly the same as last season. We sat here saying we don't know how he's doing it, but he is. He's truly an adversity manager, which is a good point from Nick. Thank you very much for your super chat. It is a good point, but it's also evidence of a manager that somehow, despite certain fans turning on him, and despite the media turning on him, and despite certain players turning on him, he can still retain a squad that will go out there and deliver for him, despite us hearing that it's divided and against him. Mark from New Zealand, I might be a little off because I'm watching from the start. Do you think Rashford has been identified much like Mason Greenwood because he's homegrown and pure profits, is Fraser Love? Look, I think the homegrown player thing, some people don't really understand this, but Chelsea do it a lot. Man City do it a lot. In the quest to be flexible to financial fair play, the best way to be flexible or I suppose defeat financial fair play is to sell homegrown players for high values, because it's just pure profit. There is no, if you, as I said before, if you were to sell Jadon Sancho in the summer, I think his contract's 5 years and we paid £75 million for him. So 75 divided by 5 is what? It's nearly 20 million a year. So if you sell him in year 3, you are, you still I've got that completely wrong. It's about 15 million, isn't it? I think, is it 15 million bang on? It is 15 million a year, actually, you twat. So 15 million a year of that 5-year contract gets amortized. So in year 3, you're still only up to 45 million. You're still 30 million short of his actual value. So you're not actually going to get 75 back for Jadon Sancho anyway, because you haven't reached what you paid for him across the contract. So whereas a homegrown player, you've never spent anything on them. So if you sell Mason Greenwood for 50 million quid, it goes straight into FPL. If you sell Rashford for 100, it goes straight into FPL. And this is why Chelsea have been trying to sell Conor Gallagher. It's confusing, but they want to sell Conor Gallagher because if they get 50 million, same with Broha, it just purely goes in and it helps them out a lot. So, yeah. Macaulay worked under Potter at Brighton and Chelsea, says Shane. You know what? If we bring Graham Potter in the summer, I will absolutely lose my shit. If Ineos's plan is to build a team around Graham Potter, then this club's finished. And I like Graham Potter, but if their plan is to bring Graham Potter in as Manchester United manager, and we're bringing in people who used to work with him, and we're going to try and duplicate what Brighton did at Manchester United, we're finished. We're finished. You cannot do what Brighton did at Manchester United. Brighton buy cheap and sell high. It works at Brighton. It won't work at Manchester United. What you need to do is take people who worked at Brighton, if you want to, who have a different mentality from Brighton, who think they can utilise those things at the top level. So you buy cheaper, but these players stay at your club and, you become successful. We can't be employing everybody who worked at Brighton and think we're going to be successful, because Brighton's expectations are probably 6th or 7th and get into Europe. Man United's expectations are win the Champions League and the Premier League. So it's a different type of model. It can't be Potter. It can't be Potter. I mean, I'm trying to convince myself here. Top 4 over trophies, standards in the gutter, says Arfoot. Yeah, but you're in the gutter, mate. You're about 30 years too late. Top 4 over trophies, standards in the gutter. Mate, you belong in the past. Go back and live in the 70s. What are you talking about? Everybody knows top 4 over trophies is more important in the modern game. Sorry. Wake up. It's 2024, mate, not 1988. The FA Cup has got no value compared to top 4. Sorry. That's the new world. The Carabao Cup, you get into the Conference League. It's got no value compared to top 4. Don't blame me. Blame UEFA. Top 4 over trophy, standards in the gutter. Do you want to talk to Wigan? They won the FA Cup 10 years ago. Where's Wigan? It's like, where's Wally? Where the fuck are Wigan? I don't know. Where are Wigan? They won the FA Cup 10 years ago. I don't know what league they're in. Oh, we played them the other week, actually. I think they're in League 2 or League 1. Unless it's the Premier League trophy or the Champions League trophy, top 4 is arguably more valuable than any other trophy. I didn't write the rules. You know the rules. Big up the top 4. Main reason we should sell him, says Yazza, because he has a lack of football IQ, doesn't pass when he needs to, doesn't run into space and doesn't track back and doesn't read the game, says Yazza. I think he's talking about Rashford. Mohammed says, why do we need to sell Rashford? Let's give him one more season and keep him be senior pro. If not work, then sell him in the other summer, says Mohammed. There you go. Cy Baines, welcome to the members club. Appreciate that. So where does Vinicius Jr. go in all this? Says Graham Cox. I don't know. And Arfoot's back again. Top 4 is not success if you get, in my opinion, standards lowered. He's doubling down. I don't really understand the Vinicius Junior story, to be honest with you. I don't understand why Vinicius Junior is even meant to be leaving Manchester United, Real Madrid. I've heard absolutely nothing about this, and I don't actually know why or where he's going to go. That makes absolutely no sense to me at all. Unless Real Madrid need to sell, but I would have thought that Real Madrid are building something with Bellingham and Camavinga and Rodrigo and Vinicius Junior, and then you bring in Mbappe. I don't know where the Vinicius Junior story even starts, and they would want ridiculous amounts of money. Garman says, what with the fee we would get for him, the talented youth we have in his position, and the fact we need to desperately spend big on depth in other positions, sell Rashford is the easy decision. And Jason says, we need a big clear out in the summer, and it's a massive game today. Let's push for top 4 and keep the pressure on. Erasmus. Yeah. And look, overarching to all this, obviously we're talking about a news story. And as I say again, I'm pretty sure PSG will be considering Rashford. Maybe Rashford will be considering PSG. Maybe Man United will be considering selling Rashford. I don't think that's speculative. I mean, the evidence is there as to why all of those things might be happening. But right here, right now, it's February the 18th. Right here today, we're playing Luton. We need to win. Winning puts us in the Champions League. Putting us in the Champions League changes the complexion of Ten Hag's situation and every player's situation. You know, Man United, look, potential negative here. Never really thought of it like this. Ten Hag gets top 4. Ineos say, well, maybe you just underachieved at the start of the season. You don't need that much. This team can clearly get top 4 2 years in a row. You had a lot of injuries at the start of the season. You don't need that many players. I think you can compete with this team. That would be the worst thing ever. Have you ever thought of it like that? Have you ever thought that the big rebuild, the big clear out, the big signings won't happen if we get top 4 again? Because they'll go, well, you had a lot of injuries at the start of the season. That won't happen again. We'll give you 1 or 2 players and you go again. I mean, that would be horrific. I mean, I want top 4. We all want Champions League football. But I tell you what, I'm going to ring up Band-Aid and say, hey, you can have your biggest plaster in the world back. Because if we get top 4, or if we get 5th in Champions League football this year, it's the biggest plaster over the biggest crack in the world. We will have got away with it. But, you know, it would be a Glazer thing to say, well, you got top 4, I don't know what you're on about. You don't need a load of players. You've had a few injuries. If you don't get them next year, you should be able to challenge for the title with this team. That would be a Glazer approach in year 3. It's exactly what happened to Jose, and then Ten Hag would be gone by Christmas. What needs to happen this summer, if anybody's got a bloody clue at Ineos, is that the club is broken. We've been sticking plasters over the cracks for too many years. And if we get Champions League football, we're very, 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 very lucky. And it's an incredible job from the manager. You need to clear out and you need to bring a lot of players in. Imagine, though, we do get Champions League football and they go, we don't need a clear out. You don't need that many players. You're fine. Mason Mount's fit now. I don't know what's going to happen. I'd be very surprised by that, though. And I don't think that would happen because you've got a new CEO. You've got a new director of football. And why would they come in and go, we don't need to do anything. Let's keep going with the previous director of football's ideas and the previous CEO's ideas. The great thing about a new CEO and a new director of football is they're going to want to stamp their own authority. And the great thing about what Sir David Brailsford's doing is it's a top to bottom strategic review where you're going to be speaking to people over the last 10 years about everything that's gone wrong, why we recruited like that. So I don't think, regardless of, I think Champions League football can only be a positive for United, and I think the big clear-out's coming in the summer no matter what. Andy says, Mark, with all due respect, you won't admit this, but he is a spent force, Marcus Rashford. The time he called out United Stand about a video says it all. Move on to Paris, says Andy. Well, look, you know, I mean, a lot of people talk about this. That video, and I don't, you know, it was a few months ago now, but I don't have an issue with that. And, you know, if I had an issue, I'd sit here and say, sell Rashford, he's, you know, he's a problem, etc. But I never really had a problem with him doing that. That is just the modern footballer who is out of touch, thinking that they can manipulate their fans to target somebody else unfairly, and it was massively naive. I mean, the video was "What next?" or something like that. Rashford future in doubt title. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the thumbnail said "What next with Rashford," and then the title was Rashford Future in Doubt. And Rashford or somebody on his Twitter replied with, "Stop spreading malicious rumours." He didn't watch the video. He went off a title and a thumbnail that said, "What next?" and Rashford Future in Doubt. And at that time, he wasn't playing very well. And the story was basically, what's the future for Marcus Rashford? He could find himself on the bench. He could find himself potentially on the pathway out of Manchester United. Now, apparently that was a malicious rumour. It was a fan opinion piece on a player that was more and more becoming confusing to the fan base about what his future was going to be in this team. And lo and behold, it was actually very, very accurate. But it was probably at a time when Rashford was riding high from last season and saw that and felt he was getting, misread it. I don't know. But actually, it was absolutely spot on. And if somebody did that now, it'd be quite tame to say Rashford Future in Doubt, because I think some people would say sell Rashford, which is a very severe statement. And I wouldn't be afraid to say that. But I look at it and go, as I said with the Belfast thing, I don't really see the point in him not playing. I don't really see the point in him being treated like Sancho and told to train with the kids. We are in a position where we've won 3 games in a row and he started every single game. We are in a position where we need to win today. We are in a position where we've got some massive games and he will have a big part to play in it. And my priority is Manchester United getting Champions League football. And I think he can have a big part to play in that. And as I said about Mason Greenwood and Jadon Sancho, a load of people last night were on social media saying, all the Sancho fanboys are being quiet now because he's doing shit on loan at Dortmund. And that whole, I'm not interested in that. I'm just not interested in it. I know some of you are, and that's great. I'm not interested in this being proved right about Rashford or wrong about Rashford or right about Sancho or wrong. I want Jadon Sancho to play well every week at Dortmund because it increases the value that we can sell him for in the summer. I do not want to see him rolling back into Carrington on June the 1st and going on the tour. It doesn't help anybody. Same with Mason Greenwood, same with Donny van der Beek, same with Pellistri, same with Marcus Rashford, same with Harry Maguire, same with Rafael Varane. Anybody that might be leaving in the summer, I want them to play bloody brilliant from now until May. Because if they stay, at least they're in good form. And if they go, there's going to be interest. It's in nobody's benefit for Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Rafael Varane, or anybody else that could leave in the summer to be playing shit. It might make you feel better by going, I told you the shit, I told you the shit, I told you the shit. But actually, from a club perspective, if they're playing well, we're probably getting good results. If they're playing well on loan, they're more people will be looking at them. And overarching that, if they're playing well wherever, more clubs look at them, more price. So, yeah. Mark, with that reaction from Rashford on the video, it shows the type of mentality he has. He isn't right for the club. We need strong-minded players, says Dan John. Damark says, Rashford looks like he's fallen out of love with football or United, not sure which. I think he's looked a lot better the last few weeks, to be honest with you. But look, if any footballer wants a bit of advice on how to deal with hate and trolling on social media, then slide into my DMs. I'll let you know. I've got the source. Fucking hell. I don't have it to the extent that some players have it, but I've got some secret source on how to deal with it. And that is not by trawling through Twitter, looking at headlines about you that are completely out of context. It's very, very easy. And it amazes me that the modern footballer spends time on social media looking at people and what they're saying about them. I mean, there's a big... Look, most of you will figure it out very, very quickly what the secret source should be. But I'm telling you now, it's incredible. You look in a dressing room when a match is over, in a modern footballing dressing room, they ain't congratulating and high-fiving. They're like this. They're not doing the delivery order. They're looking at what's he said about me. What's he... Just absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you are somebody that wants to achieve excellence in your chosen field, get off this in relation to what people are saying about you. Surround yourself with the things that are going to give you the tools to be the best you. This is no good for you. A mirror is way better. The only people responsible for your performance is what's looking back at you in the mirror, not what's on there. Yeah. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Massive game for Manchester United today. Which way is it going to go? Hopefully, it's going to go the way of Manchester United. We need this win. Swap Rashford for Mbappe. That's what I think, says Tom. Never going to happen. Killen likes Gyökeres in Sporting, having the highest goal assist contribution in the world. He's a good player. He was formerly at... he's the one who's from Coventry, isn't he? Good player. I think pace might be his problem, though. But look, what a game. What a game today. I can't wait for it. We've got Kev's road trip coming up at 1. We've got the countdown to kickoff coming up at 3. I'll be on from 4. Kickoff is at 4:30. Match reaction after that. Fan forum. We've got it locked in on the United Stand. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. And if you're going out for a little bit of walk, or you're going to do a bit of tidying up, bit of hoovering, get some chores done before all of that kicks off, don't forget to check out the Goldbridge Saves Football podcast. You can walk around listening to it. You don't need to watch it visually. Scan that QR code. Get on that. We've got a pair of trainers to give away as well. Talking about the weekend, talking about everything that's going on in football. Goldbridge Saves Football. Give it a listen. Scan that QR code. I'll speak to you all later. Lovely show this morning. Really loved it. I can sense, like me, you've got that bit between your teeth and you're ready to go for what's going to be a massive game later. Let's speak later. Take care. Check out the pod. Big up the pod. You know the rules.